much is crazy right now, but we're going to talk about some real solutions. Hi, if you're just joining us, welcome to Back to School Classroom Management Solutions. I'm Linda Cardamus, and I'm so glad to have you joining us this evening. I can't wait to dive into this material with you and talk about some real solutions that will work no matter what you end up doing this year, because if anything is certain, it's that there's lots of uncertainty, and we're going to talk about solutions that will work no matter what. So welcome. We are going to get started here in just a moment. So while you wait, if you could please introduce yourself. We're going to be talking today about how to avoid 5 common mistakes that can happen in person or online, how to get students to follow procedures, earn your students' respect, reduce distractions, and get your students in the habit of focusing rather than disrupting. And once again, this is so important whether you end up in person or online. Oh my goodness, we have 1,200 teachers on here already. I'm so glad you guys are here. This is amazing. Okay, I'm assuming everyone can hear me, but if you can just hop in the chat and say yes, if I see a bunch of yeses, I will know that we are good. I'd also love to hear how long you've been teaching. If you want to share what grade, age, and subject that you teach. And, just for kicks and giggles, if you want to share what your school is currently doing, we would love to see. Are you planning distance learning? Are you planning hybrid? Are you starting in person? Do you still have no idea? I was talking to one of the girls in our life group at church, and she was like, yeah, our school still has no plan out yet. So if you're there, you are certainly not alone. Wow, welcome everyone. We can't even keep up with the chat. This is so wonderful. I'm so glad to see all of you here. This is fantastic. All right, well, we are going to go ahead and dive into this. This slide is just for those that for some reason can't hear us. I see lots of yeses, so I'm pretty sure that our sound is working here, which is awesome. All right, before we get started, if you guys don't mind, technology was not cooperating right before we got on here, and I need a second just to calm myself. If you don't mind, I'm going to take just a moment and pray for our time here. Father, thank you that we have the ability to do this training. Thank you that so many teachers took time out of their very busy days and are here. I pray that you will guide my words, make this helpful for them, help them come away encouraged, feeling just a little bit more prepared and with actionable ideas to set up their classroom no matter what form that classroom ends up taking. Please be in this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions. Have you ever felt like this when it comes, normally I ask, do you feel like this when it comes to managing your classroom? But maybe just when you think about even starting school, do you ever feel like this? Has your classroom ever looked like this? Or maybe last spring, your students were about as focused as, this. I love the little guy on the phone. If so, I want you to know I have been there. We have all been there. My first year in particular was really, really rough. But I'm so thankful that I was able to learn so many lessons, and we've all had challenges. And so if you have had challenges in the past with in-person learning, if you had troubles in the spring with distance learning, we've all been there. But here's the thing that is both a little scary, but also tremendously powerful. All of that starts the first week of school. Whether you're in person or online, that first week of school is going to set the tone for your and for your learning environment and for how it's going to work. And I think this is one of the things that was so difficult last spring was we were thrown into it with no preparedness. We did not know what we were doing. And so it's very hard to establish structure in that environment. But even if you're starting online this year, you can start off the school year right. So whether you're hybrid, in person, online, you can start out with those right expectations and structure. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. So this is Back to School Classroom Management Solutions, no matter what back to school looks like. We're going to talk about 5 common mistakes that teachers make that you can make in person or online. We're going to talk about, obviously, then how to avoid them, some keys to start the school year right, and why it matters just as much online. I'm so glad all of you are here because you clearly see that this does matter. And I am a little worried because I remember last spring when everything moved online, I thought, oh, well, at least teachers don't have to worry about classroom management. And then I quickly realized, like, whoa, wait, like it just looks different online, but it's still just as important to have those expectations and procedures and ways to hold kids accountable. So real quick, before we dive into the material, who am I? My name is Linda Cardamus, and I am the founder of Teach for the Heart. Been doing this, oh my goodness, it's almost, I think, 7 years now, over 7 years, which is kind of crazy. I taught middle school math at a Christian school in Ohio before I had my kids. And after I had my kids, I knew I was going to take a step away for a while. And that's when God led me to start Teach for the Heart. I am the creator of Classroom Management 101 and Beyond Classroom Management, as well as the author of Create Your Dream Classroom, Take Heart and Teach. And I've also compiled the Teach Uplifted Devotions. I would love to hear, before we get any further into this, who of you, it's always so cool to see the mix on here. Who of you, this is your first time ever doing anything with us at Teach for the Heart? And how many of you have been around here for a while? Would love to hear and see who's new and who's been around for a while. And thank you to both of you. We're glad to have everyone that's new. And of course, glad to have everyone that's joining us again. Oh, lots of first timers. That's really awesome. All right, if you have your notes, go ahead and get them ready. If not, you can just grab a and a pen. That works just as well. All right, we're going to dive right into the mistakes. If you've ever done a training with me before, you know we do not waste a lot of time. We like to get right into the material. So mistake number 1 is not realizing the importance of the first week or 2 of school. And this can be the difference between, I know you guys have seen this like stereotypical stock photo of the perfect classroom, quote unquote, versus this, okay? So we want to have that orderly classroom where students are engaged. We don't want the chaotic classroom. Virtually, it's the difference between this or, once again, the distracted kid who's only half paying attention. So here's the thing. The first week of school absolutely sets the tone for everything that's going to happen afterwards. And when we think about that first week of school, it's really a magical time because it kind of doesn't matter what you did in the past. It doesn't matter what you did last year or the year before or during distance learning. It's a fresh slate, and students are going to arrive with that fresh slate. And in this year, it's even more of a fresh slate than you've ever had before. No matter what form it's taken, you have this blank slate. And so that first week of school really sets the tone. If you let your students do whatever they want the first week of school, well, then they're going to get in the habit of doing whatever they want. If you don't set clear expectations the first week of school, your students aren't going to meet your expectations, okay? So that tone that we set is so important. This can truly be a fresh start. Whatever your classroom looked like in the past, even in this crazy year, it can look so different. It can look better than what it looked like in the past. But you have to take advantage of that fresh start. You have to start off right. Because if we think, oh, we're just going to start out kind of fun and like laid back, and I'll like get down to business later, that doesn't often work out very well. You got to start off the way you want to continue and help students realize right away how things are going to be and how your classroom is going to work. Once again, during these first weeks of school, it's really amazing. You can set any expectation you want. Honestly, once again, in-person, online, hybrid, if you imagine, right, this is how I want it to go, you can set that if you set that expectation from day one, this is what we're going to do, then the students don't know anything else. This is the first time they've been in your class. Virtual class, online class, mixed class. They're like, okay, this is what we're doing. And like I said, more than any year, students are coming with kind of a let's see how this goes type thing. So however you want it to look, set that expectation. This is the time to do that. You can make big changes from last year. We already said that. So for now, for mistake number 1, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is value that first week of school. And honestly, even if you're changing, even if you're like, well, I might be online for a week and then offline for a week and it's going to change, you still need to value that first week of school. It's the first time you're going to be with your students. And so value that, realize that how I start sets the tone for how we continue. How I start sets the tone for how we continue, and determine to start off right. All right, we're going to take questions all through this. So if you guys have any questions right away, you can go ahead and pop them in the chat. But I think that's first point kind of pretty self-explanatory. So I'm probably going to jump right into this, but feel free to ask questions along the way. And then we'll also take questions at the end. All right, mistake number 2 is expecting good procedures to just happen. I firmly believe that having good procedures, teaching good procedures, and then holding students to those procedures is honestly the key to a well-run classroom. Like if I had to boil it down to one thing, this is it. But we often, even me, I was doing a long-term sub before, like recently, and we just sometimes expect that it will just happen naturally. Like I'll just tell my students what to do and they'll do it. Or they'll just know what they're supposed to do when they show up in my classroom, or what they're supposed to do when they show up online, or how to turn in homework. We just assume that they know this, but they don't. If we just expect good procedures to happen, we're going to be severely disappointed. So we cannot afford to make that mistake. This looks like a few different things. Sometimes we don't think through what a good procedure is. So we can't afford to make that mistake. So especially, I'm going to talk a few different things. If you are in the same learning, well, okay, we've all done in-person and we've all done distance learning. So whatever you think you're going to do this year, think back to how that was either before COVID or during distance learning in the spring. And think about what did not go well. Were students not showing up? Did they not know what to do when they did show up? Was there what was causing distractions? What was causing disruptions? Like I said, think back to whatever scenario when you were last in this scenario, what did not go well? And then you need to think like, what is a better procedure for that, right? What would be a better expectation? How do I want my students to show up into my classroom? What should they, all these things, think through what went wrong, what would be better. And if you don't know, talk with other teachers. Ask teachers at your school. We have a Facebook group for teachers that we can share more about later. But get advice, ask other people, brainstorm, and find good procedures. The second mistake is just telling students procedures, not teaching them. So just saying it once or twice and expecting that they'll remember and do it. Especially if you teach upper grades, remember that students have maybe 5, 6, 7 different teachers with different procedures and different expectations. Even in elementary, they're not used to your procedure. They did it differently last year, or last spring, or whatever. And especially if you're doing something new like hybrid or distance learning, they're not used to this, okay? They need you to be very explicit and teach it. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So as we said, how are we going to avoid this mistake? Number 1, we're going to think through good procedures for everything. So we have the benefit that you've probably been in this scenario a little bit before at least. So think back, what went wrong before? What do I want to change? And then think about, what am I doing new? Especially, I think of people, those of you doing hybrid learning, you're doing something you've probably never done before, this mix, and think through like, what would be a good procedure for when a student's absent? What would be a good procedure for when we switch classes? Like you need to think through, if you're in person and you have social distancing, what is a good procedure for how students are going to handle masks? Think through that. And once again, if you don't know, ask around. And also keep in mind, you don't have to know today, okay? You don't have to know today. You can wait until it's closer and you have more information. So some of this is writing it down and doing this later. Don't try to answer. Yes, that there's a very much wisdom sometimes in waiting for answers. But before the first day of school, you want to think through, how do we want to handle some of these scenarios? Then teach procedures. And I want to show you guys a 4-part framework for teaching procedures. Most of us stop after step 1 or 2. But if we continue through all 4, it'll be very powerful and students will follow our procedures. So step 1 is the one we normally do, explain the procedure. But I want to point out that it's not enough to just say what to do. So this is, let's just use I normally use the example of passing in papers, which I guess we can, which once again, everything is different this year, but I'm just going to use it because it's a familiar example. So saying, okay, we're going to pass in papers. Don't just say, okay, guys, passing your papers in an orderly way. Like, you have to be very specific. Okay, we're going to start on this side of your room, and you three on this end, you're going to pass it to the person next to you. Then wait for the stack. When you get the stack, make sure you put your papers in the right order. Then pass it to the person next to you. Keep going until it gets to the end. Then you're going to go from this person to this person to this person. You're going to take it, paper clip it, and put it on my desk. Whatever that procedure is, you want to explain it in detail. If you're using masks, you want to explain that procedure, explain all of it. Even online, once again, you're explaining the procedure. When you show up online, here's the 3 things I expect you to do every single time. This is also the part where you model it. I saw that, yes, Hattie, you model, and you model what to do, what not to do. And it depends on what the procedure is. Some procedures need more modeling than others. Some are faster, some need more. Maybe you have kids model what to do, what not to do. But all of this is part of the explaining step, which is just step 1. So explaining and modeling, all of that is step 1. Once you explain and model it, you need to practice it. And I strongly believe, this is, I guess, my own opinion, but I strongly recommend practicing it right then and there. So this is how I teach my procedures. I do not, the first day of school, try to teach every procedure we're going to use for the whole year. That is overwhelming and a waste of time, in my opinion. So what I do is I teach each procedure right before we have to do it the first time. So the first procedure I teach is what to do when you come into class, because that's what we just did, right? And then the first time we have to pass something in, I teach how do we pass things in. The first time we have homework, I teach how do we do homework. The first time we're about to leave class, I teach how do we leave class. So there's a lot of procedures the first day of school, but there's also a lot that I don't introduce until day 2 or 3 or week 2 or 3, because we haven't needed them yet. So you might want to distill down, like don't teach a procedure until you're ready to actually do it. Otherwise, students are just going to forget, and that'll be frustrating to everybody. So step 1, explain. Step 2, actually practice it. So if you're practicing, with math, what to do in these scenarios, you actually have them practice it. If you're teaching your students how to turn in homework online, say, okay, everyone, make a document and turn it in so we can actually do it together and see how it works. All right, a lot of you guys do this, but there's still 2 more steps left if you really want to cement the procedure in their mind. Step 3 is to correct. So it's not enough to just explain and then practice. It's not going to be perfect that first time. Some students are going to not turn, let's say we're practicing turning in a homework online. Some students are going to, it's not going to work. Other students are going to have the wrong thing. If we're doing something in person, we're practicing how to come into the room correctly. Some students are going to run. Some students are going to forget to put their stuff away. Whatever your expectation is, it's not going to be done perfectly. So you stop and say, okay, guys, great job. But this went wrong and this went wrong. And so you forgot about this and this. You're not at all being mean. You are being extremely patient. You're acknowledging everything that you're doing right, but you're not letting little things go. You're correcting everything, because if you just let those things go, then why are they going to do it better the next time, right? So you have to correct it. You have to point out to them what they're doing wrong. This is training. I mean, you think about it, this is true of everything we do, right? We're not going to get it right the first time. So we have to train them. Jennifer says, yes, I get lots of blank Google assignments. Yes, so you go back and say, okay, 5 of you turned in something blank. So I want you to go back and check. And that is the last step, redo. So it depends on the scenario. You might have certain students redo, like, okay, these 5 of you, I didn't actually get your homework. You need to try it again. Or, hey, so-and-so, you ran into the classroom instead of walking. Let's try that again. In some cases, you might have, okay, we're going to try this whole thing again as a class, and the whole class might try it again. Use your discretion here, but you're doing so many things. When you add these last 2 steps, when you have them correct and redo, it does a couple things. Number 1, it helps cement the procedure in their mind. Remember, this is new to them. They might never have done this before. They might have a bunch of different teachers that they're trying to keep everything straight for. So it helps cement it in their mind when they actually do it right. But number 2, it also shows them that you mean what you say. And that is huge for setting the tone across the board. If you tell them what you expect and then you actually insist that they do it kindly, calmly, happily, that just screams in the right way that you're going to hold them accountable, that you mean what you say. It really builds their respect for you. Even if they don't, even it's all subconscious. A lot of this is subconscious, but it really makes a huge difference. On the other hand, if you tell them what to do, but then you don't do anything when they don't do it that way, you just kind of let it go, that also signals to them loud and clear that they don't actually have to do what you say, that they can kind of half follow directions, and that's all right. And that's obviously not the tone that we want to set. All right, that was mistake number 2. Procedures, honestly, I spent a lot of time on that because I feel like it's so, so important. Do you guys have any questions real quick before we dive into mistake number 3? Tammy asks, how do you respond when they want to argue? We talk about this actually on the training we're going to do on Thursday night. But honestly, one of the best things you can do is just not argue. It's great if you have a pet phrase like, I care too much to argue with you, and just say that and move on. I mean, that sounds crazy, but it takes 2 people to argue. So just kind of expect them to do it. Now, if you're saying, if they're like refusing to do what you said, so give them the benefit of the doubt first that they're going to do what you said. If you don't take that argument, just like, I love you too much to argue, and then repeat your instruction and walk away, or just move on. Like, assume that they're going to do it. If they outright refuse to, I would say something to them like, hey, I'm going to talk to you after. Say that to the whole class so that the whole class realizes you're not just letting that go, that you're going to address it. And then I talk to them separately and just, kind of have that one-on-one conversation right off the bat, and kind of just say, hey, what's going on? Like, and just kind of try to get at that early before it becomes a bigger problem. All right, we're going to answer more questions at the end. That was a fantastic one. Let's dive into mistake number 3. I already alluded to this a little bit, but mistake number 3 is letting little things go. And this was by far my biggest mistake when I started teaching. It led to so many problems. And I did this because I thought that little problems weren't a big deal. I mean, what does it matter if a kid has their head on their desk or they're just whispering to their friend? Like, that didn't seem like a big deal. Like, I don't want to slam them over the head for these little things. I don't really care, that they're doing this. But here's the problem of human nature. Little problems don't stay little. If we could let little things go and they just stayed little things, it would be no big deal. But if you have been where I've been, you've probably experienced this too, where you start with just letting little things go, and pretty soon it's like, it's just that human nature. Give an inch, they take a mile. It doesn't stay little. So we've heard the advice, don't sweat the small stuff. There is time for that. Last spring was the time to not sweat the small stuff. It was the time to just be happy with anything. Okay. Honestly, every spring around March and April and May, that's the time to not sweat the small stuff. It's not. But the first week of school is, okay, this is the time to set the tone. And we have to deal with problems while they're small. Now, what do we mean by deal with? This is what threw me off when I first started teaching. I thought that deal with meant I had to give some type of punishment. I didn't want to give some type of punishment for these little things. It doesn't. Deal with does not mean you have to give punishments out day 1 and day 2 of school. It simply means you need to insist that your routines and expectations and procedures are followed. I just gave you a framework to do that for a lot of times. Just simply asking students to correct and redo fulfills this deal with for a whole lot of things. Other times, deal with might be simply making a remark. Sally, sit up. Or, George, can you please do that again? Can you please do this correctly? Whatever it is. So simply dealing with it means addressing it. So it's really helpful if you're not used to doing this in the past to think through some common scenarios, or if you're in a different teaching situation than you normally are, think through some scenarios. What am I going to say if a student is, doing this? What am I going to say if a student is doing that? What am I going to say if students are, kind of walking around the room with their computer and everyone's getting dizzy? How am I going to handle this? And just being prepared, knowing what to say in your mind will help you to be able to deal with it. And that's about it. So one thing to keep in mind here is that this is going to be extra challenging. We know it's going to be extra challenging, but I just want to point something out. And this is not to discourage you at all. It's just to understand what we're up against. In addition to everything that we're dealing with, do you realize that it will have been 5 to 6 months since kids have been at school in person? In addition to this, they may have had little, if any, structured activities during this time. I'm noticing in my own kids, I have a kid going into 1st and 2nd grade, and they have not been in in-person school. And the school that they had wasn't even virtual learning. Like, it was virtual learning, but it was just basically worksheets. And then, so they haven't had like Zoom calls or anything like that. And then we normally go to church like 2 or 3 times a week. They normally have kids programs, Sunday school classes. They have had none of that, or very little of that. They have had very little structured time. And I'm noticing that even like once our church started an outdoor service, they were struggling to just even sit through that. I mean, they could do it, but they were just out of practice. That's my point. Kids are out of practice way more than a normal summer year. And they also, if you're teaching online, you might be like, well, at least, you know, I'm not having that in person, but they probably picked up some bad habits last spring. You know, we were in crisis mode. We were just doing our best. And we weren't insisting on a lot of these things because we were in the middle of a crisis. So they might have picked up some bad habits that now need to be broken. So what I say to this is, we need to recognize this situation, but we cannot use this as an excuse. In other words, we need to be patient, but we need to be consistent, because what they need from us is not to just let everything go because we know it's hard. What they need from us is to help them as quickly as possible get back into the right habits. They need to get back in the habit of focusing, and that's going to be hard. So be patient with them. Don't get frustrated when they are getting antsy way quicker than normal. Plan in extra breaks, whether you're in person or online. Have them be standing up. You know, even if you can't move around the classroom, they can stand up and, you know, put their hands up and turn around or whatever. So plan for that. Plan that they're going to get antsy faster, but be determined to be consistent and to say, I'm going to help them get back in the habits that they need as soon as they can. And that's by being consistent, kindly, calmly, with a smile, dealing with things, addressing things, helping them develop those good habits as soon as you can. I hope that makes sense. All right, any questions before we dive into mistake number 4? Okay, I see this. This is a question I don't know if I have a great answer for. I would love to hear your guys' answers. What do you do if a student does not show up on Zoom? That is something I would talk with your administration about, because I feel like that's something that school-wide there needs to be some type of policy for. What is the expectation from the school? And you need your admin kind of back up on that. So I would get with your admin and kind of talk with them. What is going to be our school policy? What is the expectations for students being on Zoom? What are we supposed to do when they're not? How do they let us know how do they let us know if they're actually like sick, if they're going to be absent, you know, and all of that. So talk with your principal about that. That's one of the things I wouldn't necessarily try to figure out now. If you don't have an answer yet, put that on your list that you need to know before school starts. But I would push your admin to come up with some of these things. All right. Yes, I see a lot of things in that direction. All right. Once again, we'll take more questions here at the end, but let's keep going into mistake number 4. Okay, giving you guys are sharing lots of great answers of what your school is doing. So if your school doesn't know, here's some great ideas that you can share with your admin. All right, mistake number 4 that we can make is worrying about being liked by your students. Now, it is completely normal and natural to want to be liked. We all want that. But do we worry about it? Does the fact that we want our students to like us drive what we do in the classroom? And if we do, that can really cause a lot of problems because we won't respond. We won't hold them accountable. If we are mostly focused on wanting them to like us, then we are not going to hold them accountable. We are not going to deal with problems. We're going to let stuff go, and it's going to spiral out of control pretty quickly. So how do we avoid this mistake? Well, first of all, instead of looking at yourself as trying to be their friend, Instead, view yourself as their mentor. So rather than being a friend, view yourself as their mentor. It's a mindset shift for you, but it's hugely impactful for it will change how you interact with them. See, I think all of us teachers have this, or most of us teachers at least have this inside of us where we want to make a difference. Like we want to be the person that our students can come to with their problems. We want to be able to help them. We want them to know that we care, right? And so sometimes that leads us to say, okay, like I want them to see me as a friend. But but the teacher-student relationship is not a friend-to-friend relationship. It's not a peer-to-peer relationship. And when we try to do that, it inevitably like runs into that trouble because we're trying to be a friend, but we're trying to hold them accountable. And then we're giving homework. Like friends don't give homework and give consequences. And it just doesn't quite work out that way. So instead, we have to view ourselves as their mentor. The mentor accomplishes all the same things we want. The mentor is there for their mentee. They are rooting for them. They are guiding them. They are giving them advice and help. They are everything that mentee needs, but it's not friend to friend, it's mentor and mentee. And that is the relationship that we're striving for as teachers, where we're not on the same level. There's a clear like hierarchy, but we are for them and they know that. So just make that subtle shift in your mind. Rather than trying to think, okay, I want to be their friend, think, I want to be their mentor. Second thing is, if you're tempted to worry about being liked, instead focus on earning their respect and on being respected. And the great irony is that if we are really worried about being liked, it often leads us to not hold students accountable, to let things go. Our classroom and our teaching often devolve into chaos, and we actually become less effective as a result. And in the end, a lot of our students end up not liking us or respecting us. So wanting to be liked often results actually in the end in not being liked. People don't like our class. It's not good. And they don't look at us with respect. So instead, we want to focus on being the type of teacher that is deserving of their respect, where we create a classroom that they want to be in, a classroom that is orderly and structured and where they know what to expect, where we're consistent and we're loving and we're kind, and earning that respect that way. And if you think back to your own schooling and think back to students that you've dealt with, when we work from this type of framework and we focus on being respected, we have often so many students come back later. It might not be that year, but later they come back and say, I loved your class. You were my favorite teacher. I learned so much. And they do like us in the end. So it's okay to want to be liked, but instead of worrying about that, focus on being respected. Okay, this next one is a little bit controversial. So if you disagree, feel free to disagree, but I'm going to make my argument, and it's something to definitely consider. I don't think it's the best idea to start off day 1 and day 2 with crazy activities in an effort to be fun. Now, I know this year that's kind of harder to do than normal anyhow, because we've got social distancing and everything. But in other words, I don't think even in normal circumstances that it's the best idea to start off day 1 with like this crazy activity where students are going around the room and like doing all these things, because you haven't established that structure yet. You haven't taught the procedure for how to go around the room and come back in your seat calmly. You haven't taught any of that yet. And so you're creating chaos right off the bat without first establishing structure. So I actually really strongly believe in starting off the first few days of school, in person or online, with way more structure. And if you start off with structure, so you can do icebreaker activities without kids running around the room, right? You can do icebreaker activities that are more subdued or that involve just a couple people talking. So you can choose activities that are still fun and engaging, but are more structured. Because once again, remember, you want to teach a procedure. You want to make sure every time you do something, you've taught the procedure for it first. So you need to pick activities for the first couple days that are relatively simple, that you can teach that procedure, and then build up to more complicated things as things go along. So if you want to do these crazy, fun, elaborate activities, that is amazing. As you're able to do them, with everything that's going on, do them, okay? But build up to that. If you start with structure, by October, November, you will be able to do that all the time, and you'll be able to quickly rein the class back in, and you'll be able to do way more than if you try to start off really fun and you kind of get chaos involved. It's going to be harder to do that the whole rest of the year. I hope that makes sense. And once again, if you disagree and it works for you, great. But if you've had trouble in the past, then this might be something to consider. Yeah, and one little caveat to add here. When you're starting with structure, that does not mean it's boring. Don't let it be boring. Let your passion and excitement for your subject shine through. Let them see that you are a nerd for math, or that you love writing, or that history is amazing. Okay, let them see that. Make it fun and exciting, but it just doesn't have to be crazy elaborate the first couple days. All right, and then finally, we already said this, don't let the little things go. Instead, have high expectations. We already talked about how hard it's going to be for students showing up, having had no structure for so long, but have those high expectations. Show your students, this is what we're going to do this year. I really think that, this is a balancing act, especially this year, it's a balancing act, because we have to recognize there are very unique challenges for all of us. Like this, there are crazy challenges this year. There's just no two ways about it. But if we completely lower our expectations, then that's the ceiling that we've set for our students. So I really do think we want to have good, realistic expectations. Be realistic with your expectations, but put them high in the realistic expectation. You get what I'm saying? Keep them realistic, but don't lower them. Don't lower them too much, because we want to call students up to what they're capable of. We want to make this an amazing year, despite all the challenges that they have. So make the modifications that are wise. Think through what you're going to expect, but then hold them to that. All right. And then with the caveat of feel free to modify your plan as needed, right? This will all be learning. Things will change as we go, but we want to hold students, and when we need to change, talk to them about that. Be honest. This is why we're changing what we're doing. So be open to that feedback, especially this year. Change things when you need to, but just be aware of just that tension. We need to understand where students are at, but we don't. But if we lower expectations too far, then we miss out on what they might be capable of. So just balance that. And when you're not sure, ask a fellow teacher for some advice to help you figure it out. All right. So finally, to avoid mistake number 4, we're going to be kind and firm. Sometimes we see kind and strict, nice and strict, as like two different options, but the reality is that we can and should be both simultaneously, always. We should be nice all the time. We should be personable. Our students should enjoy being with us. This is key more than ever this year. We should be understanding of the struggles and different situations that our students are in. And hopefully we're even fun to be around. But at the exact same time that we're nice and personal and we're understanding and we're fun, we have high expectations that we're going to hold them to. We deal with issues when we come up. You deal with issues kindly, patiently, with understanding, and you're not a pushover. I invite you guys back on Thursday. We're going to talk about some of these things in a little bit more detail in our respectful, responsible, and engaged training. But one of the keys is when you're dealing with something, you can lead with empathy while holding students accountable. Oh, that's so hard that you that's tough that you had an activity that you attended last night. But I give credit for work that's turned in on time. So I hope next time that you can turn it in on time. Okay, so kindly understanding their situation, but not being a pushover. Doing that at the exact same time. All right, we're going to pause one more time before we dive into mistake number 5. How do we access Thursday's training? If you go to teachfortheheart.com/trainings with an S, you can sign up for the second one. So yeah, we're kind of doing like a little bit of a series here. Teachfortheheart.com/trainings in an S. Thursday's trainings will be about how to help students. It's kind of like the take it to the next level, how to help students be respectful, responsible, and engaged. All right, hold on one second. My comments disappeared. I'm going to push the fix this right here. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. All right. Just checking if there's any other questions here real quick before we dive into the next one. All right, we're going to do a big Q&A session at the end. So if you have more questions, hold on to them. We will definitely answer them. All right. Mistake number 5 is not being fully prepared. And probably just seeing that might strike fear into your heart because you're like, Linda, I am trying to be prepared and I have a million questions that I don't know. And that's true. Okay. So take all of this with an understanding that you can only do what you can do. Okay. And remember that you don't have to have all the answers right now. Okay. If your school doesn't start yet, you don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't have to. Okay. But let me just do a few things. But nonetheless, if you do need to be prepared, come day 1. Okay. So you don't have to know now, but you do need to know for day 1. So once again, I'm not doing this to cause stress, but just a few questions. Do you know what you're going to do if a student wanders around the room, in person or online? What if students are disruptive? Once again, in person or online. What if a student is on his phone? In person or online, right? A lot of these things just look differently online, but it's the same scenario. What if someone blurts out an answer? Do you know how you're going to handle that? Because here's the thing, I know this from sad experience. If you have no plan, then you don't know what to do. Then it happens and you're like, I don't know what to do. And because you're not confident, at least this is what happens to me, I end up doing nothing. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then the moment is past and I just don't do anything. And that's what leads to disaster. We let the little things go. We don't deal with them. Little problems don't stay little. They compound and it creates bigger problems. So, and this totally happened. I remember my professors in college trying to warn me. They said, you need to write down what you're going to do in these different scenarios. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. And I never did it. And I still am not sure why I didn't do it. I think I didn't do it because I didn't know what to put down. Maybe I was just busy with other things. And I honestly, that's a really big danger this year. There are so many other things you have to figure out, so many new things this year that you might forget to actually think through, like, what am I going to do in these various scenarios? So this is something to write on your to-do list. You don't have to know now, but as it gets closer, you want to think through, what am I going to do with these various scenarios? So we have to have a plan for everything. Okay, we can't literally have a plan for everything because students are always throwing us curveballs, but we can have a plan for as many things as we can. And if you feel like you've struggled with this in the past, write it out. Just write out, what am I going to say to this? What am I going to say to that? I do want to talk real quick and give you guys a few ideas on some specific things that we often struggle with. So this is more of an in-person thing, but yeah, this might be useful online too. So, regaining attention. So your students are working they're either working in small groups, they're working with a partner, or maybe it's just one of those dreaded scenarios where just you look out and suddenly, like, I've lost the class. I remember in the past trying, like, flipping lights, raising my hand. Call and response, class response sayings work amazingly well. How many of you guys use these in your class? So the way they work is the teacher says something and then the class responds. So for example, the teacher would say class and the class would respond yes, or anything. It could be anything that you and your class come up with. And what's so great about this is when the class responds, they have to stop talking in order to respond. So it cuts off the natural flow of conversation and then they come back with you. It's a great way to regain attention. And remember though, you have to teach this procedure. You have to explain, practice, correct, redo until they're used to it, and then it will work. If you just tell them to do it, it's not going to work. You have to take it through the procedure for teaching procedures, and then they will. They'll do well with it. It can work all the way up through upper grades. I've used it in upper grades before. Just let them pick something they like to say. That works a little better. All right. What about chatter, blurting, disruptions? Which once again, I remember thinking, oh, this is you don't have to worry about this online. But if you taught last spring online at all, you realize, yes, there's still blurting and kids unmuting themselves and just talking and disruptions and all of that. So I'm going to give you a couple ideas and talk about a few ways this could work. These are just ideas. You do not have to use these. But if you find them helpful, a lot of teachers have found them helpful. So first is a warning system. And this idea comes from, well, I got it from my mentor, and then I also found it in the first days of school. And so it's kind of used, it comes from a lot of different places. So if a student's talking or being disruptive in any way, then they get a warning. And you can give that warning in a variety of ways. Like the old school way is to write a student's name on the board. You can use Class Dojo. If you're teaching online, you can chat, send them a chat. Here's a warning. it can be that. I've seen in elementary classes, a teacher putting like three laminated bubbles on kids' desk, and they'll just like cross out with a dry erase marker one of the bubbles, like they're popping the bubble. And that's the way they give a warning. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you can do it without stopping teaching. You do not want to interrupt the flow of your teaching to give a warning. Remember that we're trying to keep class rolling. So you want to have a way to give a warning without interrupting teaching. Now, a warning is just a warning. There is no consequence attached to the warning. And that's why it works, because you don't want to hesitate to give a warning. You don't want to have to feel like, oh, they're not really doing anything that bad. I don't really want to. This is one of the ways, this is one of your options to deal with problems like little things like chatter and disruptions and little disruptions. So you don't want to hesitate and be like, well, they were just talking a little. They don't deserve whatever punishment. A warning has no punishment with it. So you just give the warning, okay? Now, what happens though is if they don't heed the warning, then there is some type of consequence, okay? So the goal of the warning is for them to self-correct. And you talk to them about this ahead of time. You say a warning is a way for you to realize what I'm doing is disruptive and I need to correct it. If you correct it, that is the end of it. Nothing happens. If you don't correct it and you keep going and continue to cause disruptions, then there is some type of consequence, okay? And what that consequence is totally depends on your school. At the end of your notes, there's a consequence ideas list, or you can head to teachfortheheart.com/consequences. If you don't have that, you can download that. But it's going to totally depend on your school and on your situation. And honestly, I recommend at the start of this school year, being as lenient with this as possible. Like when I did it, it was 3 warnings in a 40-minute class period. So you might want to reset your warnings pretty often. You might even want to make it at the beginning of this school year where like 3 warnings means you lose a reward. You might not even want to give an actual consequence, because remember, students are in really bad habits and we want to help them break it, but we want to do it in a way that's not like frustrating for everybody. So this warning system, you don't want to make it too strict so that you are hesitant to use it. You want to be comfortable using it. You want to know that if they get to whatever point this is, they really weren't self-correcting. Hopefully that makes sense. I love this system. It worked so well for me. It really helped me turn things around because it promotes individual responsibility. I mean, how many times have you said in front of the class and said, class, stop talking, please stop talking. And you feel like you're going crazy and everyone's going crazy and no one's even listening to you, right? The kids that are being really good are like, okay. And then the kids that are causing the problems are like completely ignoring you. So it helps individual responsibility. When they see, okay, I got a warning, it helps them correct individually. And then once again, it curbs behavior without that constant nagging or punishing. Honestly, when I use a system, maybe like 5 to 10 times a year, I would actually give a consequence. And that's with 100 some students, 6 periods a day. Okay. It just rarely got to that point. Just the fact those warnings were just kind of all the students needed to self-correct once they were used to it. Now, you do need to be ready to follow through in the beginning so that they see you're serious. Okay. And that's why maybe you start off with it's not actually like a consequence, it's a loss of a privilege or something like that. But you definitely do need to follow through so they see you're serious. But in the end, I hardly ever had to actually give consequences. And it works. It just works really well. Another option that it depends on how your class is structured, whether this would work well online, but this definitely works in the classroom, is whole brain teaching. So remember those call and response sayings that we talked about where you say class and they say yes? Well, you can do the same thing with rules. So let's say rule 2 in whole brain teaching is raise your hand for permission to speak. Let me back up one second. Whole brain teaching is like a whole classroom management framework that you can use. I kind of like to pick and choose. So I like to pick out a few things from it. And this is one of the things that I think is great. So if you have raise your hand for permission to speak virtually or in person, then if someone shouts out an answer, you would say, oh yeah, Olivia, remember rule 2. And once again, you've taught your whole class that when you go rule 2, the whole class says out loud, raise your hand for permission to speak. And then you move on. So once again, you're dealing with it by just reminding the whole class of what the expectation is. And that's about it. Whole brain teaching does have a whole lot of other great ideas, which we talk about some in our Classroom Management 101 course, or just Google whole brain teaching and you'll find a ton of ideas about it. So to avoid mistake number 5, think through a lot of different scenarios. Write a list of like, what are some of the scenarios that I feel like I might face, and just start writing down, what am I going to do? A not perfect plan is better than no plan. So think through something. You can always refine it in the future. And then practice. If you're not confident in that, get in front of a mirror, get with a friend, and actually practice what you're going to say. That might sound silly, but it can be really, really helpful. All right, so how do you put together your plan for all these different things? Well, first of all, as I said, you can talk with other teachers. Talk with teachers at your school. We have a Facebook group online at teachfortheheart.com/Facebook that you can join. You will be setting yourself up for success. But I will say, great classroom management is extremely nuanced, in person or online. And one thing that's challenging about it is that one missing element can really throw everything off. And that's why we've created our Classroom Management 101 course. And I'm going to take questions and answers in just a second here, and we're going to award our winners. But I wanted to tell you about this really quick because we do have a special offer for you tonight if you guys are interested in more help and support in how to put together your plan. So Classroom Management 101 is a complete organized system that ensures that you don't miss any of the crucial elements for a strong classroom management plan. So it will guide you step by step through the process of developing and implementing that plan. We start off with, how do you develop the right mindset? Module 2 is all about how do you prepare your plan? And it's the same things in person or online. What am I going to expect? What are my procedures? What are the rules? What are the expectations? What consequences? What rewards? Like all of that. How am I going to deal with things? Module 3 is about how to prevent problems from happening in the first place. There's so much you can do in person, so much you can do online to prevent problems. Module 4, how do we address problems that arise? What do we say to students? How do we deal with that? We get into so many specifics, way more than we have time for in this 1-hour training. Module 5, how do we inspire and motivate our students to learn, which is obviously key to success, and it cuts out on so many problems in person or online. And then Module 6, how do we troubleshoot some challenging situations? For example, how do we manage transitions? What do you do if you get a new student mid-year? How do you deal with drama amongst students, and all kinds of things like that? So how does it work? Video lessons guide you through each strategy, and each video just 5 to 10 minutes long. Really easy to hop on. You can binge the whole thing, or you can spread it out. You can watch at your own pace. You never lose access to the program. So you can do it now. You can do it next summer. You can do it whenever you'd like. And there's a printable manual with notes already taken for you, because I want to make it as easy for you as possible. So I already took the notes. So you can listen and watch while you're cooking or cleaning or whatever else you're doing. This is designed for K through 12 teachers. It's not specifically designed for preschool, but anyone K through 12, it's definitely be applicable to you. If you're a new teacher, this is perfect. It's exactly everything I wanted to know when I started. If you struggle to control your class, it's perfect for you. Or if you just feel like you might be missing something and you need some extra help and support. Now, here's the big question everyone has. Will it help in 2020? All right, if you're in person, absolutely. This is the perfect time to establish that classroom culture you've always wanted. I know it looks a little different this year with social distancing, but you can have a calm, orderly classroom. And as things hopefully improve over time, you can add in more and more fun things, and you'll be able to, because you'll have that calm classroom environment. Okay, if you're doing hybrid, honestly, I think this is you need this the most, because you're going to have precious few time in person, and yet you're also managing and teaching procedures and expectations for when they're at home. You're doing double duty, and so you have to be efficient. Students have to follow your procedures. It's like way more important than ever. Okay, if you're teaching fully online, I really believe this will help you as well, because it's the same principles. As you can see, this is the same presentation I do every year. We just applied it to online. All right, so if you're online, what I would recommend doing is going through the course once now with online teaching in mind. There will be a few lessons that are not applicable that you can skip, like how to prevent misbehavior behind your back. You get to skip that one. But go through and think, how am I going to apply this online? And then you keep access. So you can keep it and do it again next year if you're back in person. You can do it again with in person in mind. We're going to be launching a special Facebook group that's specifically designed just for these members to help you apply what you're learning to online, hybrid, social distancing, everything that's happening. So we're going to help you apply these concepts to what's happening in 2020. So even if you don't know, we're going to be there for you every step of the way. All right, we got to get to the Q&A, so I'm just going to fly through this. We have some awesome bonuses for you. We have a back to school bonus module that if you don't have time to go through the whole course, you can just go through that. It will really help you be prepared for back to school. And then our support community on Facebook, brand new. We're going to be in there to help make sure you get all your questions answered. You get the support you need in this unique 2020 year. All right, normally a license costs $119 for an individual enrollment, but we want to give you guys our best offer, which is we want you to be able to pay what you can afford. And what that means is you get to pick your cost. You can pay just $100, $75, or as little as $50. And there's no people ask me every year, like, if I choose 50, like, do I get less than someone that chooses more? No, it's whatever you can afford. We don't want price to be an object. If you want to join us, we want you to be able to join us. So if you want it to, there should be a little button that says join now. Hopefully that's showing up for you guys. If not, if you don't see that, you can head to teachfortheheart.com/CM101 sale, teachfortheheart.com/CM101 sale. And you can use one of these coupon codes to join at whatever price you can afford. We do also have a payment plan and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Normally we have a 30-day money-back guarantee, but we're doubling it so that if for any reason you get in there and you're like, oh, this isn't as helpful as I thought to my unique situation, just ask for your money back. Problem. Sarah and Alex take care of that for us. You don't have to worry about if it's not as helpful as you thought. We really think it will be, but if it's not, that's no problem. All right. Oh my goodness. I still have more bonuses. I'm sorry. I'm going to get through this so we can get to the Q&A. If you join tonight, this is a special fast action bonus. You'll get a copy of Create Your Dream Classroom and also our classroom procedures that will save your sanity training. We're also going to choose one person that joins tonight to get a free half-hour session with me at the time of your choosing. All right, so we hope you guys can check that out. Let us know if you have any questions, and we're going to jump into the Q&A here. But as you guys have questions, let me know, and I will be happy to answer those for you. All right. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to do our Q&A. So we're into Q&A now. I can answer questions about Classroom Management 101. I can answer questions about the start of school. I can answer questions about whatever you have. So if you have questions, go ahead and start putting them in the chat. But first, I need to announce our winners, and I'm going to take just a second and pull that up. We were giving away 3 winners for Classroom Management 101. And so I'm just going to grab that. Now, what happens is it gives me your email address, and I don't want to read that on the air. So I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to say part of it without saying the whole thing. So the first one is, starts with KYMLA, Kaimla Mathis, and then there's some numbers after that. So if that's you, congrats, you've won. Email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Kathleen at clevelandmetroschools.com. I won't say your last name, but from clevelandmetroschools.com. Oh, if that's Cleveland, awesome. You've won. Head to just email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. And then Renee Pounds, please email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. You guys have won an enrollment in Classroom Management 101. All right. Also wanted to say, if you are here with a friend, we have some special mystery prizes for you. So if you will, they include some of our classroom posters, and I think we might add in one other thing too. We're still trying to decide what those prizes are. So if you are here with a friend, please email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Say I'm here, I'm with this friend, copy your friend, and put in the subject line, I'm here with a friend, okay? So email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com, say I am here with a friend, copy your friend on there, and we'll email you back those special prizes. All right, some of you guys are asking about the certificate. The certificate is available at teachfortheheart.com/certificate. You can download your certificate of attendance. Welcome to Kristen. We're so glad to have you in Classroom Management 101. Welcome to Michelle, joining us in Classroom Management 101 and Beyond Classroom Management. Welcome to Jennifer. So glad to have you. And to Janet. You guys were fast. I know it takes a couple minutes to get signed up. You guys must have jumped on it right away. And welcome to Heidi. We're so glad to have you too. Okay, lots of information here. Let me try to get some of the questions answered. Oh my goodness, my Q&A just disappeared. Let me grab it one more time. All right, 1 second. I'm pulling up it. All right. What are your thoughts? Donna asked if there will be cameras in the classroom. If your school is having cameras in the classroom, first of all, check with your school as far as privacy and what the situation is there. So check with them on that. Do you have specifics about what exactly you're asking for that if you're having cameras in the classroom? I know it's kind of scary to have cameras in the classroom, but I think just kind of embracing like kind of doing the work you need to do in your mind to not let that affect too much what you do, just to determine, I'm going to do my best and kind of try to almost ignore them as far as if you're worried about like people observing you. If you want to specify exactly your biggest concern about that, I'm happy to help that more. The address for the certificate of attendance is teachfortheheart.com/certificate. Marilyn, how do you deal with a crying student on the first week in kindergarten? Okay, I am not a kindergarten teacher. I am so thankful for all of you wonderful kindergarten teachers out there. So a crying student, I would be there for them, I would comfort them as you best know how, and find things that will make them smile and welcome them in your class, and just be patient with them and loving towards them. And just kind of realize it's par for the course. It's not anything to be taken personally. Welcome to Desiree. So glad to have you, and Georgine and Roberta and Lori. Welcome so much. I'm glad to have Sarah with us as well. And Julie, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you. Someone's asking, there was a free ebook. How do we access this? So these special bonuses for those of you that joined tonight. Let me clarify this. The pay what you can afford pricing will be available for about a week. I'll send you follow-up emails to let you know when that's ending. So we want to give you some time if you need more time. But joining tonight, these special bonuses are only if you join tonight. So these bonuses, the ebook and the special training on procedures that will save your sanity, Lord willing, I will send those out tomorrow. So I'll send a special email for you guys tomorrow that will contain those for you. Okay, so I'll make sure you get that. If you don't get them by the end of the day tomorrow, feel free to email us and ask what's going on. Joyce is saying you're trying to have trouble finding the certificate. Joyce, it's Teach for the Heart. It's the number 4. So here's the URL right here. teachtheNumber4theheart.com/certificate. All right, trying to see. I know one of the tough things here is that I can't always see all your questions. So if you missed a question, go ahead and add it again. All right, I just found a whole bunch of questions, but it is officially 9:30, and we said we're going to keep this to an hour. So if you need to get off, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate it. I'm going to stay on and continue answering questions for a little bit longer. So anyone that has questions, feel free to stay on, and we'll answer them for you. Welcome to Ellie and Becky. So glad to have you. Welcome to Loretta and Charles. Welcome to Katie and Sharon and Sadif. I probably said that wrong. I'm sorry, but welcome. Welcome to Ali and Christy. Oh, and I'm running out of everybody. Okay, Mary, welcome. And welcome to Lori and Barbara and Kristen. We're so glad to have all of you. Okay, let's see. So many good questions here. Someone asked if we have a school license. Yes, there is a discount for a school license. It's significant. If you head to that page, teachfortheheart.com/CM101 sale, you'll see the school pricing there. So yeah, we offer a tremendous discount for school license, and it's for all your teachers, current and future, full access. Jennifer, what type of consequences can be issued in a distance learning environment? This is, again, something where you need to check with your school and see what the expectations are, okay? So, I mean, there could be academic consequences in cases of work not being turned in, but remember, a consequence can also be a lack of a reward. So if you're having trouble thinking of actual, like, consequences, think of something that you can offer to all the students that fulfill something, or if you don't get 3 warnings, you get this. So you can also think of rewards, and rewards can be as simple as like it doesn't have to be something monetary. It can be something you do together as a class, that you get to participate in something extra if you don't lose the reward. So if you can't think of anything, try maybe thinking along that line. But yeah, I'd also bring that up with administrators or other teachers at your school, because every school is going to have a little bit of different take on that. Michelle asks, how do you stay consistent with expectations when you have some students who are more erratic due to extra learning or emotional needs? Okay, so when you have students with special situations, the first thing I think is important is you can't let that change what you do with everyone else. So if you have a truly unique exception, then hopefully the students understand that. And if you need to have a frank conversation with them, do. But don't let the fact that, let's say someone has honest modifications, like IEP modifications or things like that. If you're letting them do something that you don't let the other students do because of that, don't think, oh man, I have to let them do that. You don't. They have an IEP. It is a special, unique situation, okay? Or even if they don't have an IEP, but you really believe this is best for them and you're really sure about that, then if you, like I said, don't stop holding other students accountable because of that. And if that's causing problems, just be honest with your class about it. Have an honest, kind of family discussion about that. Let's see this question. How do you deal with student drama or leaving students out on purpose? Yeah, we have a whole section on this in Classroom Management 101. But one of the things that you can do is just help kind of try to facilitate reconciliation amidst those students, helping them understand, getting them together and help facilitate that reconciliation. With them is one thing that you can do, and just kind of helping them navigate that. You can also guide them to solve their own problems. So kind of teaching students, leaving the ball in their court. So sometimes it depends on the situation. Sometimes you might sense, if I step in, I can help remediate this. Other times you might sense that they need to figure this out on their own, and you can guide them to solve their own problems by kind of saying, hey, do you want to hear how other students have dealt with that? And you can give them a few ideas and then say, I wish you the best. And kind of just leaving the ball, putting the ball back in their court, and giving them the responsibility of figuring things out. So it depends on the situation. That's not always the best way to deal with it, but it kind of depends. Like I said, we talk about that a lot more in Classroom Management 101 and beyond classroom management. And we're also going to talk about it some on Thursday. So come back on Thursday. Let's see. How do you respond when you are in the middle of correcting a child and he answers with something like, but so-and-so did it too, and you didn't catch that other child? Okay, yes. When I first instituted the warning system, I had so many, it was like you're trying to break a horse. The students argued with me so much about it. They would say, but so-and-so is doing it, or you didn't catch so-and-so. And I made the mistake of defending myself to them. And it was a huge mistake. In the end, we don't have to defend ourselves. What we need is a few pat answers that we can say quickly and move on. So in other words, you will be stuck in a huge conversation, and we can't get sucked into that, because really what they're doing is trying to excuse and get themselves out of not even trouble, especially when you're just using a warning system. When I used a warning system, what I finally came down to is saying something very simple. You got to warn, you're not in trouble. I use that phrase, you're not in trouble, so much. It's such a, it really de-escalates things. You're not in trouble. It was just a warning. I'm sorry that I missed so-and-so. I can't see everything, but what's important for you is that you simply focus on yourself and on making a better choice next time. And then, if you're in a physical classroom, turn around and walk away. That's the end of the conversation. Just finish the conversation. And if they keep arguing, just say, I care too much about you to argue. We're going to do this now. And just try to move past it as quickly as you can, because the arguing, it's not helpful. And if you do sense that they really are they need to talk to you more, then ask them to talk to you after class. But even then, I would be careful. Like I had some students wanting to talk to me every day after class, and they were just like questioning me. And like I'm feeling like I had to defend myself. It was not helpful. So be careful about falling into that trap. It is definitely a trap. Oh, want to welcome everyone that's joining us. Welcome to Mary and Rhonda and Stephanie. We're so glad to have you. Welcome to Megan. I don't think I'm going to be able to say welcome to everybody. We're going to spend up too much time here. Welcome to Robin and Zarina. That is a beautiful name. Wanda, welcome to Wanda and Krista and Natasha. We're so glad to have all of you. Welcome to Charlotte. Oh, this is awesome. Welcome to Tanya. Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. By the way, that Facebook group, we're hoping to start here at the beginning of August. So it's not started yet. We're going to finish up these trainings, and then we're looking forward to starting that together. So watch for info on that. Welcome to Kathleen and Glenda and Jennifer and Carol. So glad to have you. Welcome to Nancy as well. All right. As long as you guys, I'm going to stay on a little longer, try to continue to answering some of these questions. How do we tell you we are here with a friend? Email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Copy your friend on the email and just say in the subject line, I'm here with a friend, and we will reply back with your bonuses. April asked, do I have any training for special ed? I do not. I do not have any training specifically for special ed. So I would not say that this course is designed with special ed in mind. The principles can be applied to it, but if you're specifically special ed, there's probably programs that are a little bit better suited for you. How do we deal with the students who enter class after the first week? Oh, great question. This is another thing that we deal with in Classroom Management 101. So if you already have the better you do of establishing your classroom, the easier it is to integrate a new student. If you can ideally pair them with another student, if you're able to do that I know everything's going on, it might not be possible, but if you can pair, it should be possible. You can do it even if they can't like sit by each other. They can still like be a contact person, and they can be a person that can answer questions for them. That will save you a lot of explaining. So give them special permission to ask questions, to coordinate, and then just kind of integrate them as soon as you can. Anytime that they don't do something the way you're supposed to, just calmly say, hey, this is how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to handle it. And just kind of just train them just like you did everyone else, just kind of piece by piece. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, a couple of you are saying that it's not working for you. If for some reason you're having trouble joining, if you send us an email, linda@teachfortheheart.com, we can help you. So yes, thank you so much, Sarah and Alex, for there. If you need assistance, if anything's going on, email us. Please be patient. We have wonderful customer service people, but they have tons going on in their own lives, just like you. So we will get back to everyone as soon as we can. It might take a little bit of time, but we will honor, if you're emailing us now, we will honor this special pricing. We will honor these things for you, even if you're having trouble getting on right now. All right, I'm going up here through the questions. Okay, that was a great question. I already answered that one. How do you stay consistent with the little things when you are exhausted and frustrated? Oh my goodness, Deborah, that is such a great question. I think it's a little bit personal. I think everyone's different. You kind of can learn for yourselves what to do, but it's something to be really aware of. First of all, recognize it. If you know when I'm tired, I get testy, or when I get frustrated, or when I get whatever it is for you, recognize that and say, okay, I'm tired today. I'm going to tend to be more whatever that looks like for you. It's different. So I have to be aware of that and choose to compensate for it. So I think being aware of it is the start. And then, like I said, choosing to compensate. So say, you know what? I tend to get testy. I'm going to try to be extra nice today. I'm going to make it a focus of me. Or I tend to let things go when I'm tired. I'm going to be extra vigilant today. Like whatever it is that you tend to do, just kind of choosing and so recognizing it and recognizing it's important. This matters. That mental choice is like 90% of the battle, I really think. Any advice for first-year teachers entering this hectic time? Oh my goodness. Welcome to teaching. Realize that this is not going to be your typical year. It's almost Oh my goodness, the first year's so hard anyhow. Maybe it's almost better to get all the craziness out at once. Honestly, my biggest advice is a lot of the things that I just gave you, a lot of my best advice. Honestly, these are the things I wish I knew. Just really think through how you're going to handle things. And no plan, a non-perfect plan is better than no plan. Think it through, know how you're going to handle things, and just value classroom management, because it's not the funnest thing. It's like we don't want to deal with it. But if we don't, then all the things we really care about, all those things about developing relationships and like really impacting students and helping them learn and all those great activities you want to do are way harder. So value classroom management. Take time in the first weeks to teach procedures. If you don't teach as much as normal the first weeks, that's okay. It's okay. It's always okay, but even more so this year, it's okay. And just enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. You know, it's not ideal at all. But one of the things I feel like in this pandemic is there's times when I felt like, okay, we just have to get through this. But then I realized as it continues on, we can't wait to find joy until this is over. We have to find joy now, today, this year. Like, we can have joy with our students this year. And I hope that that is what you experience. Am I going to have a replay? Yes, we will send out the link to a replay. As soon as we end up here, I'll actually update the page, teachfortheheart.com/back-to-school-training with the replay info. It might take a little bit of time to be ready, but by tomorrow it should be ready to go, and we'll send it out to you guys. The certificates at teachfortheheart.com/certificates. All right, if someone's having a trouble with certificate, email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and we will be love to help you. Kim asks, what problems should I be prepared for teaching online? I would love to hear from you guys. What are some problems that you ran into teaching online? Some of the most common things I'm hearing are just like students not paying full attention. So kind of like half attention, not really, students not being there, students not paying attention, students in a part of the house where there's like distractions in the background, either purposeful or non-purposeful. So those are a few things. Think about, how do you want students to turn in homework? How do you want students to turn in classwork? If you're going to be using breakout rooms, what are the expectations there? So just think through, like, what am I doing in my classroom? You know, how am I going to handle that? And you can also have like a blanket, how am I going to handle like anything that comes up? It might just be simply saying like, okay, I didn't anticipate this. We're going to have a better solution for this tomorrow. That can be your answer. You can be honest with them so they know, okay, I realize this isn't going well. We're going to fix it. So you can kind of have something like that in your back pocket. Gail says students not watching the video. So you send videos home and they don't watch them. Oh yeah, students not knowing how to mute and unmute, walking around the room with their device. So you get that distraction. So once again, setting expectations when we're in class. Where should you be? What should be the situation? Deborah says cameras off, students in bed, students focusing. So yeah, these are great. All things to consider. Okay, someone has for kindergarten. I actually taught middle school, so I don't like, right now what we normally do is have these trainings that are more for everybody. So I would say Classroom Management 101 is absolutely applicable for kindergarten, but I don't have something specifically for kindergarten. All right, guys, this has been such a wonderful time. Thank you guys again so much. I'm going to welcome a few more of you guys. If you have any final questions, this is your chance to ask them. So if you've asked, I went through all the questions I had. So if you've asked one and I missed it, it's gone too far down the queue and I'm not seeing it. So if you can add it in one more time, I will stay on and answer a few more if you'd like. Welcome to Nancy and to Sarah and to Sherry. So glad to have you. Welcome to Jennifer and Tammy. And Deborah, we're so glad to have you. Welcome again to Gail and Andrea, as well as Barbara. Oh my goodness, there's more. And Beline and Cheryl and Nicole and Tanya. And if I missed you, I'm sorry. I am missing some of these. There's more than I can get to. Welcome to Natalie and Karen and Sharon, another Sharon, and to Lisa. We're so glad to have all you guys. All right, just checking for these final questions. How do you get support if you do not use Facebook? Oh, amazing question. Okay, Lynn, we always have support directly in the program. So there's a spot in the program where you can ask questions, and there's hundreds of comments from other teachers. So there's like collective wisdom from tons of teachers right within every lesson. And then we have our moderators, our support team that goes in there and checks those questions, and they'll answer, or they'll tag me and say, and I'll come and answer them. So yes, if you're not on Facebook, there's absolutely support in the group as well. Facebook is just an added place. So yeah, great question. I should have mentioned that earlier. What do you do if your school has low expectations? Yeah, that's a tough question because, yeah, you might be a little bit, I don't know what word I'm trying to say. Like that's definitely a difficult thing. But you can still have high expectations in your class as much as you're able to. So I would still set high expectations. You need to be aware that your admin might not back them, but do what you can. Like, once again, think, what is reasonable? What can I call these students to? What can I see in them that they might not see in themselves? And I would just do what you can in your classroom. In some cases, your classroom is your domain. So yeah, do what you can in your own classroom. Tanya asks, how do we get PGP points for the class? I'm assuming that's some type of professional development that your school or district has. So we offer certificates of attendance and certificates of completion that you can then submit. Every school and district has different rules. We are approved with AACS and ACSI, which are a couple Christian school organizations that are like nationwide. But other than that, most students don't have trouble submitting it for PD credit. If you have specific questions, you can email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Dawn asked me to say a little bit more about Beyond Classroom Management. Okay, Beyond Classroom Management is the sequel to Classroom Management 101. So Classroom Management 101 is like our first course, and Beyond Classroom Management builds on that and kind of takes it to the next level. So once you have that foundation of a good class, now it's like, well, what can I do with this? I can develop a classroom where my students are actually excited to learn, where they care about their own learning. So how do I do that? How do I develop a class that's respectful, that wants to learn? How can I have a vibrant classroom community? So it kind of builds on what we learn in Classroom Management 101 and takes it to that next level. All right. How do you deal with students interrupting to go to the bathroom? Okay, in person, I used to let students go all the time, and it just became a huge problem. So the way I dealt with this was, at least for the age of my students, was I simply said, you can go out. I would typically say, I'll let you go a few minutes early at the end of class. And 9 times out of 10, that was just the end of it. If they really had to go, they would come back and say, but I really have to go. And then I would say, okay, go. So it kind of just kind of initially giving like a soft no keeps it from becoming something they abuse too much. But yeah, and that brings up another thing online. Like, what are students supposed to do if they need to go to the restroom or get a drink when they're in an online class? Just think through that. Do they just put you a note in the chat? Do you have them turn off their mic, like their camera, and go? Like, do they give you a signal? You want to know what's happening. So that's another thing to think through online too. All right, couple more questions here, and then I think we're going to call it an evening. How do you adjust students that are on their phones when they're in Zoom class? So once again, have an expectation for that. What is acceptable phone use and what is not? And what do you expect from them? Talk about that as a class. Talk about why it's important, why it matters. Maybe that might be a place to help students to have a bigger conversation about it, and kind of help students think through. And yeah, and I would talk with other teachers at your school and try to coordinate a little bit if you're having students that are switching classes, so you can kind of have a more cohesive response possibly, and expectation for that. Let's see. Okay, Darlene gives a great idea. She says, in our school, we knew if students didn't watch recorded class because we would ask a special question during teaching and they had to respond. They would only know the question and answer if they watched. So that's a great tip. Of course, they can tell each other, but at least helps it a little bit. How can I ask a student a question online without them feeling singled out or embarrassed? Well, Denise, there's a lot of different options online. I mean, I don't know which context you're talking about, but I mean, you can chat, you can send them an email, you can send them an individual video. There's a lot of different ways you can talk with a student. You can hop on the phone with them. But if you're talking about just like during class, I would try to create an online classroom culture where you're calling on individual students all the time. So they don't feel singled out. It's just part of your class, just like it would be in person, where like it's interactive. Make that a habit online. And if the first day students might feel awkward at first, but if you make it obvious, like I'm calling on everybody like all the time, then it won't feel like that. Hope that answers your question. Elise has another idea about videos. She says, I started using Edpuzzle. The students watch the video and answer questions you post. It grades it if you use multiple choice and links to the grade right to Google Classroom. That is a fantastic tip. Thank you, Lisa. All right, the certificate, teachfortheheart.com/certificate. The number 4, teach the number 4, theheart.com/certificate. How would you handle a parent that is disruptive? I was clear about expectations, but she continued to break student rules. Okay, that's really tough. I would do what you started first. I would be clear. I would try to get on a phone call with that parent and kind of explain what the challenge is. And I would start by seeking to understand. Ask them like, hey, we're having a problem with this. Can you share with me your concern? And hear why they're doing it, because there might be an alternate way to answer their concerns. In other words, there's probably a reason they're jumping in or doing whatever they shouldn't. And so once you understand why they're doing it, you can better help them understand why the way they're responding is not the best way and what they can do instead. Hopefully that will work. If that doesn't, then you might need to get an admin involved if it's causing a big problem. Okay. Are there PD points for the paid classes for license renewal? Once again, we offer a certificate of attendance that lists 6 hours of credit. Every organization has different rules, so I can't promise it would be accepted by your state or district or whatever organization you're using, but it should be. And you can check with them if you need to. But the certificate lists 6 hours. All right, guys, I'm just going to answer 2 more questions, and then I think we're going to have to call it a night. And if I didn't answer your question, feel free to email us. We'd be happy to continue to help. Would you give warnings the first day of school? When would you start? I would absolutely start the first day of school. This is one of the first things I explain to my students because, once again, I wanted to set the tone right away. If you have different classes, you only see each class for like 40 minutes, you might not actually have to give any warnings the first day because typically students, everything's new and they're kind of just taking it in. If you have them for long, 40 or 50 minutes, if you have like a self-contained classroom, then they get bolder by the end of the day. And you might actually have to give a warning. So I would be prepared to give warnings right away because, once again, you want to set the tone right away. But once again, you explain to them, it's just a warning. Nothing happens. This is just to help you understand. And the first couple of times you do it, you can say, hey, this is how this works. This is what it means. This is what it doesn't mean. You're not in trouble, and kind of just have that attitude with them that like, this isn't a big deal. This is just to help all of us. Okay. All right. So many great ideas here. I encourage you guys to just go ahead and go through. Someone says that you entered the code, but you were charged the wrong amount. Okay, something just must have gone wrong. Maybe you forgot to hit enter or something. So email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and just say what happened, and we'll be happy to refund the difference. That's no problem. That always happens for some reason with a couple people. All right. Someone asked, the certificate is blank. Are we to fill it out? Yes. Just go ahead and sign it yourself. It says the certificate says that you signify that the event. If that is not acceptable for your school, email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Let us know. If you need my signature, we can do that. So just let me know if that's what you need. All right, guys, I think I got pretty much everything here. If I missed your question, once again, please feel free to email us, linda@teachfortheheart.com. It has been so great to be with you. This has just been such an encouragement to me to have you guys here. I hope that it's been an encouragement to you. I really appreciate your being here. I did not know what to expect with everything going on. I hope this has been a help to you. And once again, I hope we'll stay in touch and send you our weekly Teach for the Heartbeat email, which has encouraging and helpful resources. We got some great resources our team's been assembling to share with you that we hope will be really helpful for you guys. So thank you again so much. If we can help with anything, email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. And then welcome to everyone else who's just joined us that I haven't read your name yet. I'll have to go through all of these here in a little bit. Welcome so much. We're so glad to have you. You guys have a great night.